Hello, and welcome to Dreamy Lab tonight. We travel to some of the most extreme places on Earth, the magnificent polar ice caps. In these frozen regions, mountains and oceans are buried beneath miles of ice, and the sky glows with green and violet auroras. Here, the usual rules of the world begin to shift. Time feels slower, sound travels farther, and in the stillness, the Earth reveals its oldest secrets. Stories are written in snowflakes, carved into glaciers, and preserved by creatures that have never felt warm air. The poles are more than cold places. They are memory, mystery, and motion. They are the living heartbeat of a planet in balance. Before we begin, if you enjoy these quiet journeys, you can like, subscribe, or share a thought in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let the hush of the polar wind carry you far from the noise of the world. Let's begin. At the bottom of the world lies a massive frozen continent, Antarctica, covered by ice several kilometers thick. Inside that ice is nearly 2/3 of the planet's fresh water. Every snowflake that lands here becomes part of an ancient record, pressed into layers that form mountains of frozen history. If all of Antarctica's ice were to melt, sea levels would rise by about 60 meters, flooding coastlines around the world. But most of that ice never melts. It moves slowly and silently, like a solid river flowing toward the sea. Beneath it lie hidden valleys and buried lakes that have not seen sunlight for millions of years. Antarctica is not just frozen. It is shifting, breathing, and storing the memory of Earth's water in a stillness so deep that centuries pass like moments. Spread across more than 13 million square kilometers, this ice is so heavy that it pushes the Earth's crust downward by hundreds of meters. The land beneath is not fixed or unchanging. It moves slowly under the weight of the ice. When glaciers thin or retreat, the ground begins to rise again, lifting like a cushion relieved of pressure. Scientists measure this slow rebound using satellites, watching the crust rise by millimeters each year as the ice changes above it. It is a quiet reminder. Even rock and continent are flexible when seen on the timescale of the planet. Antarctica is not a frozen statue. It is a dynamic system of weight, gravity, and motion. An immense hand pressing on the Earth, shaping its surface as gently and persistently as tides shape the sea. In Antarctica, winter temperatures can drop below -80 degrees Celsius, and even summer days rarely rise above freezing. The air is so dry and clear that moisture freezes before it can form clouds. Winds sweep across the ice at speeds over 200 kilometers per hour, sculpting snow into ripples called sastrugi, frozen waves shaped by time and air. Yet in this extreme environment, life still finds a way. Tiny organisms live in pockets of brine within the ice. Moss survives on frozen ground exposed by wind. And emperor penguins endure months of darkness and cold, huddling together in silence to protect the next generation. The Arctic, at the opposite pole, tells a different story. Unlike Antarctica, it is not a continent, but a floating ocean covered in ice. Here, polar bears roam the frozen surface, seals rest on ice floes, and whales dive beneath the crust of seasonal frost. The sun behaves differently in these regions too. For months at a time, it disappears below the horizon, leaving the land in unbroken night. Then, without warning, it returns and refuses to set, casting a soft light that circles the sky for weeks on end. In the silence of polar day and night, time feels less like a line and more like a circle, slow, repeating, and endless. The Greenland ice sheet, a vast expanse of white and pale blue, holds enough frozen water to transform coastlines across the globe. In some places, the ice is more than 3 kilometers thick, deep enough to completely cover the height of Mount Everest if it stood beneath it. Hidden below this ice lies a secret world. Mountain ranges, valleys, and the remnants of ancient rivers carved long before the ice arrived. These landscapes were sealed away by time and pressure, preserved beneath the frozen weight above. Near the base of the ice sheet, the pressure is so intense that the ice behaves almost like a slow-moving liquid. It drifts outward over centuries, flowing silently toward the edges of the continent and into the sea. Scientists drill deep into Greenland's ice to uncover its history, layers of snowfall pressed into time capsules. Within these frozen cores, they trace the story of Earth's changing climate and the rise and fall of ancient sea levels. Though it seems eternal, the ice is always in motion, a frozen ocean flowing at the pace of centuries. It is powerful enough to reshape the land it rests on, yet delicate enough to disappear under a warming sky. At the summit of the East Antarctic Plateau, the air is so cold and dry that any hint of moisture freezes instantly. On perfectly still nights, beneath star-filled skies, temperatures can fall below -100 degrees Celsius, colder than dry ice, colder than any place humans have ever stood. In such extremes, metal can crack, plastic can shatter, and each breath turns to a cloud of frozen crystals. No sound travels far, no movement lasts long. Yet within that emptiness is a rare kind of stillness. The snow there has lain undisturbed for centuries, untouched by footsteps, shaped only by faint winds and the quiet glow of the moon. Satellites have identified these frozen basins, recording temperatures so low that even heat seems to escape the planet itself, rising into space. To stand there, if one could survive it, would be to touch the very boundary of habitability. A silence so complete it feels like the edge of the world. The Arctic Ocean moves to a rhythm all its own. Each year, as sunlight fades and the long polar winter begins, the sea starts to freeze. Inch by inch, ice spreads outward, eventually covering millions of square kilometers, almost doubling its summer reach. Then spring returns, and with it, the touch of sunlight. The ice loosens, breaks, and drifts apart, forming mosaics of white and blue that float across the water. The cycle of freezing and melting continues, year after year, a pulse as steady as breath. This seasonal rhythm shapes every life in the Arctic. Polar bears follow the ice edge to hunt. Seals climb onto the frozen surface to give birth. Even microscopic algae grow within the ice, feeding the entire marine food web. From above, satellites watch this frozen heartbeat, a glowing pulse of white expanding and contracting with the seasons. Though fragile and thin, it is one of Earth's most elegant natural patterns, a planet breathing through ice. In the darkness of polar night, the sky becomes a canvas for invisible storms arriving from space. Charged particles from the sun ride solar winds across millions of kilometers before colliding with Earth's magnetic field. Guided toward the poles, they dive into the upper atmosphere and burst into color. Green curtains ripple across the darkness. Violet edges shimmer like breath on glass. Ribbons of light twist and fold silently across the sky, moving like slow water poured across the stars. For millennia, humans watched these lights in awe. Some believed they were the spirits of ancestors, others thought them fire in the sky, or messages written in color on the night. Today, satellites measure auroras from above, tracing their glow on both ends of the planet. Even in places where no one stands to see them, the lights dance across the ice in silence, painting the poles with the breath of the sun. Though the poles look barren, they are alive in ways the eye cannot see. In cracks within the sea ice, microscopic algae bloom, feeding krill and fish that swim in the dark waters below. Tiny fairy shrimp and cold water plankton drift in frozen seas, invisible but essential to everything larger. On the Antarctic coast, penguins gather on blue ice shelves, their calls echoing into the wind. Farther north, in the Arctic, polar bears patrol the shifting edge of ice, moving with patience and power across frozen oceans. Some creatures live entirely within the ice, sealed in pockets of water and brine, enduring cold that would stop most hearts. They move slowly, breathe rarely, and wait through winters that last half a year. What seems empty is often only quiet. Under Antarctica's frozen surface are more than 400 known subglacial lakes, bodies of water sealed beneath ice so thick that sunlight never reaches them. Lake Vostok, one of the largest, has been hidden beneath nearly 4 kilometers of ice for over 15 million years. Its waters have never touched the air we breathe, and whatever life exists there has evolved in complete isolation. Elsewhere, rivers flow in darkness, carved long ago and pressed into stillness by the ice above. Scientists lower instruments through narrow holes drilled in the ice, searching for traces of life, ancient bacteria, or chemical signals from a world locked away. These places are reminders that Earth still keeps secrets, even in the age of satellites and data. Not everything has been seen. Not everything has been touched. When a glacier reaches the sea, its edge begins to fracture. The pressure builds for years in silence, until the ice finally gives way and a piece the size of a city breaks free. The moment of calving can sound like thunder, a deep roar that echoes across the water and sky. The newborn iceberg drifts into the ocean, glowing with impossible shades of blue. Some are so vast they create their own weather, fog curling over their peaks, snow falling across their ridges, winds swirling around them like breath around a mountain. As they float, the sea reshapes them. Waves carve arches and towers, hollowing corridors of translucent ice and tunnels lit by pale underwater light. In time, they melt back into the ocean that bore them, returning their frozen memory to the sea. Each iceberg is both temporary and eternal, a fragment of a continent, a monument to cold, a quiet reminder that even the greatest structures on Earth are only ever passing through. An iceberg's life does not always end quickly. The largest ones, flat-topped giants called tabular icebergs, break from Antarctica's vast ice shelves and begin journeys measured, not in days, but in decades. Driven by slow currents and polar winds, they drift thousands of kilometers through fog, storms, sunlight, and darkness. Satellites have watched some of them wander for more than 20 years, shrinking, cracking, and reforming as they travel across the Southern Ocean. Along their path, they transform ecosystems. As their ice melts into seawater, they release nutrients that awaken blooms of plankton, drawing fish, birds, and whales in great numbers. When their long journey ends, they disappear as quietly as they began, melting into blue water and vanishing without sound. Each long-lived iceberg is a voyager, carrying ancient snow into distant seas, spreading the memory of frozen ages across the world's oceans. They are the drifting ghosts of Antarctica, luminous, impermanent, and as graceful in their fading as they were in their icy birth. Beneath the surface, the hidden faces of icebergs reveal colors that seem almost unearthly. The deeper the ice, the greater the pressure and the fewer the air bubbles trapped inside. When sunlight passes through those compressed layers, the ice scatters light into radiant blues and greens. Some glow like glass lit from within. Others are laced with jade or turquoise veins. These colors hold history, the purest blue born from ancient, compacted snow. The greenish tones formed where seawater once froze against the glacier's base. Divers who venture near these giants say it feels like drifting through a crystal cathedral, every surface shimmering with shifting light and soft echoes of the sea. For a moment, the iceberg, immense and ancient, seems almost weightless, alive in its colors. It is one of nature's quietest miracles, sunlight, salt water, and old ice joining forces to paint the ocean from below. Not all sea ice disappears in summer. Some survives the thaw year after year, compressing and hardening with each passing season. This multi-year ice becomes dense and deeply ridged, often growing more than 5 meters thick. It drifts slowly through the Arctic Ocean, carried by wind and current, growing stronger as new layers freeze atop the old. Its surface is rough and blue-white, sculpted by storms into hollows and ridgelines. Beneath it lies an unseen world. Algae cling to its underside, feeding tiny crustaceans that feed fish and seals. What looks like frozen emptiness from above is, below the surface, a fragile, living realm. Scientists study multi-year ice as a record of endurance, a marker of how long the Arctic has been breathing, freezing, and melting across centuries. But this ancient ice is disappearing. In a warming world, its strongholds are fading, replaced by thinner, younger ice that cannot remember the winters of the past. Every layer of Antarctic snow begins as a fragment of the sky, falling gently through the cold. As more snow settles above it, the pressure compresses the lower layers, sealing tiny air bubbles inside. These bubbles are perfect time capsules, pockets of ancient atmosphere untouched since the moment they were trapped. When scientists drill deep into the ice and retrieve these frozen layers, they can study air that no human has ever breathed. They measure the levels of carbon dioxide, methane, and oxygen from hundreds of thousands of years ago. These samples reveal how Earth's atmosphere has changed, how warm periods arrived and vanished, how the balance of gases shifted over time, and how delicately our climate is held in place. To hold such a bubble is to touch time. To imagine inhaling air from before cities, before language, before memory itself. Inside every frozen sphere, the ancient world is still breathing softly. Deep within the untouched interior of Antarctica, scientists drill into ice that has not felt warmth for nearly 1,000,000 years. Every layer they pull from the depths is a page in Earth's frozen diary, snow that fell, settled, and turned to ice over countless winters. Locked within those layers are air bubbles, dust, ash, and chemical traces from worlds long gone. Together, they reveal a rhythm of ice ages, thaws, and periods of quiet stability punctuated by sudden shifts. By studying these ancient cores, scientists can reconstruct the atmosphere across 800,000 years, tracing the rise and fall of carbon dioxide and methane as the planet breathed through time. These patterns show that climate has never been still. It has pulsed, cycled, and turned in harmony with sunlight and orbit. In this frozen archive, the past still speaks, a whisper of wind preserved in glassy silence beneath the Antarctic sky. In the coldest regions of Antarctica, there are glaciers that barely seem to move at all. Their ice is so thick, their grip on the land so strong, that they creep forward less than a few meters each year. To the human eye, they appear completely still, silent giants frozen in time. Yet over centuries, their weight shapes valleys, sculpts mountains, and grinds stone into fine, ancient dust. Scientists call this slow march glacial flow, a movement so gradual it is more like the breathing of the earth than motion. If you could stand beside one and wait a lifetime, you might never see it shift, but the land beneath your feet would remember every inch it traveled. These slow glaciers are memory made solid, reminding us that not all movement needs speed to leave a legacy. When scientists extract the deepest ice cores from Antarctica, they uncover far more than frozen water. Layer by layer, the ice reveals traces of events that shaped the world long before human memory began. Within the crystal walls lie thin strands of volcanic ash, dark, fragile signatures from eruptions that once dimmed the sun and altered the course of seasons. These ash layers mark moments when mountains roared and fire met sky. But some particles in the ice were never born on Earth at all. Embedded within the frozen layers are specks of cosmic dust, the silent remains of meteor trails that drifted through the atmosphere before settling onto ancient snow. In those grains lie the memory of distant stars and wandering stones from space. Together, these fragments record both catastrophe and wonder, earthly fire and celestial drift. By studying the chemical signals locked in the ice, scientists can determine when volcanoes darkened the skies or when stardust quietly touched our world. Each fleck of ash, each cosmic mote, is a punctuation mark in Earth's long story. Proof that even at the planet's frozen edges, the universe is always leaving its trace. Every snowflake carries a secret signature. Oxygen atoms exist in slightly different forms, some heavier, some lighter, and the balance between them shifts with temperature. As snow falls and is slowly buried under new layers, those isotope ratios become sealed in time. By measuring the oxygen isotopes trapped in ancient ice, scientists are able to reconstruct Earth's past temperatures with astonishing accuracy. What emerges is a rhythmic pattern across hundreds of thousands of years, a frozen pulse of the planet's climate. The record shows the slow rise and fall of ice ages, their quiet beginnings and abrupt retreats. These cycles follow the subtle changes in Earth's orbit and tilt, the delicate shifts that change how much sunlight reaches each hemisphere. Through this frozen chemistry, We see that the climate has always listened and responded, breathing in long, glacial time. The ice does not simply hold water, it holds memory. Deep within Greenland's ice lies one of humanity's earliest global footprints. Thin, nearly invisible layers contain traces of lead that fell from the sky more than 2,000 years ago. The source was not modern industry, but the smelting furnaces of the Roman Empire. Melting ore to mint coins, craft pipes, and fuel expansion. The smoke rose into the atmosphere, crossed continents and seas, and finally settled over the Arctic in drifting snow. Each rise and fall in lead concentration mirrors the fortunes of Rome itself, its growth, its crises, its collapses. Prosperity, warfare, plague, and decline are etched not only in ruins and records, but in the pale memory of polar ice. Long after marble shattered and empires disappeared, the ice kept its quiet account. It shows that even in ancient times, human actions reached far beyond the horizon. The past did not vanish. It froze into silence, waiting to be read. Sometimes the smallest travelers journey the farthest. Microscopic grains of pollen released from forests, fields, and grasslands drift into the sky and are caught by powerful high-altitude winds. They can circle the globe for weeks, crossing mountains, oceans, and deserts before finally settling into snow at the edges of the world. Once buried in ice, they are preserved perfectly for thousands of years. Under a microscope, each grain tells a story of origin. Pine from Siberia, grass from the Canadian plains, flowers from forgotten meadows. By tracing where and when these tiny travelers landed, scientists can map ancient wind routes and the distant pulse of ecosystems half a planet away. The ice does not only remember the cold, it holds echoes of summers far beyond the horizon, proof that nothing on Earth is ever truly separate, and that even the poles carry whispers from worlds of green. On the high Antarctic plateau, the air becomes so cold and dense that it begins to fall under its own weight. Gravity pulls it downhill in vast invisible currents, accelerating as it descends. These are katabatic winds, the most powerful and enduring on Earth. They can roar at speeds of 300 kilometers per hour, faster than a hurricane, carving the ice into jagged ridges called sastrugi and polishing vast valleys until they gleam like glass. Yet they are not merely destruction. These winds act as the continent's breath, carrying frigid air from the interior to the coast and influencing global weather systems an ocean away. To the rare souls who have stood in their path, the winds inspire both terror and reverence, an invisible river racing across the ice. And when the gale finally stops, the silence feels like Antarctica exhaling centuries in one long breath. It appears like an endless ocean of snow, but the heart of Antarctica is one of the driest places on Earth. The air is so cold that it can hold almost no moisture, and only a few centimeters of snow fall each year, light as dust, crystalline and silent. Because it never melts, that tiny snowfall slowly builds a surface that looks abundant, but is formed grain by grain over millennia. In truth, the South Pole is a frozen desert, drier even than the sands of the Sahara. The dryness preserves everything it touches. The wooden huts of early explorers remain nearly unchanged, and even footprints can last for decades. Time itself seems slower here, stretched thin by cold and silence. This is a landscape sculpted not by rivers or rain, but by patience, a desert of frozen light where absence becomes eternity. The Arctic Ocean may seem frozen and unmoving, but when storms rise, the ice awakens. Powerful winds sweep across the surface, shoving great sheets of sea ice against one another until they break and heave upward. These collisions form pressure ridges, jagged walls of shattered ice that can rise as high as buildings and stretch for kilometers across the frozen sea. Beneath the surface, their hidden keels plunge downward like the roots of inverted mountains. Each ridge is a moment of impact preserved in ice, a frozen memory of storm and force. Life gathers in the shelter of these icy ramparts. Algae bloom in the shaded crevices below, feeding fish that slip between glittering tunnels. Seals rest in the hidden stillness, safe from hunters above. For explorers and travelers, These ridges are not just obstacles but landscapes, temporary architecture sculpted by wind and pressure. They grow, collapse, and reform with every passing season, reshaping the polar seascape again and again. When the storm quiets, the ridges remain, silent monuments to the ocean's cold and restless power, proof that even ice can carry the shape of motion. At the far ends of the earth, where the night stretches endlessly, the heavens come alive. Auroras, born from storms on the surface of the sun, begin their journey as charged particles flung through space. Guided by Earth's magnetic field, they spiral toward the poles and collide with atoms high in the atmosphere. In those collisions, light is born, ribbons of green, violet, blue, and crimson that ripple silently across the darkness. To ancient eyes, they were spirits dancing, fires of the gods, or battles fought in the sky. To science, they are magnetic storms. Both visions tell a truth. Under an aurora's glow, the world transforms. Snow glistens like polished silver, ice glows like glass, and shadows vanish into luminous haze. These lights are not just beauty. They are dialogue, a quiet conversation between the sun and the earth, written across the sky in shimmering breath and drifting color. There are places where the sun sets not for hours, but for entire seasons. During the polar night, light fades until the world turns deep blue and quiet, illuminated only by stars, moonlight, and the pale glow of distant auroras. Snow captures and reflects what little light exists, creating a landscape that glows like frostlit twilight. In that long darkness, life adapts. Some animals, whales, birds, and caribou travel south in search of light and food. Others remain, foxes that hunt by sound, seals that navigate by memory, bears that sleep beneath ice and snow. For people who live there, time unravels. Days and nights blur together, marked not by sunlight but by lamps, firelight, and the slow rhythm of breath and rest. Yet the darkness is not empty. It is calm, patient, and vast, a pause in the turning of the earth. And when at last the sun peeks over the horizon after weeks or months of absence, it feels like a beginning, a sunrise stretched across the soul, waking the world from a deep and silent dream. When Earth tilts just so, the poles enter a season where night is forgotten. For weeks, even months, the sun drifts around the horizon like a lantern that never dims. Light settles over the land in a golden haze, a soft twilight without darkness. Shadows stretch and wander but never vanish. Birds build nests without fear of nightfall. Arctic flowers race to bloom in the brief warmth, drinking in every hour of sunlight as if aware their time is short. The tundra hums, not with heat, but with urgency. People who live beneath the midnight sun learn to sleep by memory rather than dusk. Curtains become substitutes for night, and clocks matter more than sky. In that endless day, time loosens its boundaries. Morning and evening blur into a continuous hush of light. Standing in it feels like stepping outside the clockwork of the world, suspended between day and dream. Yet the brightness carries a quiet sadness, too. It is borrowed light, temporary and tender. Soon the planet will turn again, and darkness will seep back across the horizon. But for a while, the Earth stays awake, watched over by a sun that refuses to sleep. On the barren heights of East Antarctica, atop a plateau scoured by wind and silence, instruments once recorded a temperature of nearly minus 98 degrees Celsius. At such extremes, air begins to crystallize. Frost blooms from breath midair. Even carbon dioxide can freeze into delicate grains. Sound slows, as if the cold has thickened the space it travels through. Metal grows brittle. Fuel turns sluggish. Movement becomes reverent, as though the very atmosphere demands humility. Yet even in that near-alien cold, life persists, not in herds or forests, but in microscopic waiting. Bacteria hide in cracks of ancient rock. Algae rest beneath snow, clinging to the idea of warmth. Those who work in such places describe the chill not as temperature, but as presence. A silent, invisible pressure, colder than words and older than memory. In this frozen realm, Earth reveals the razor-thin boundary in which life survives, a fragile space between inner fire and the vast cold of space. When the long night descends and the continent becomes a world of darkness and storm, emperor penguins begin their ancient ritual. Thousands gather on the frozen sea. Each female lays a single egg, then turns back toward the ocean to feed, leaving the males to keep the future alive. The fathers cradle the eggs on their feet, shielding them beneath folds of warm skin from air that can kill in minutes. For nearly 2 months, they do not eat. The winds howl around them at hurricane force. Temperatures plunge far below freezing. And still they endure, huddling together, shifting in slow, silent rotations so no penguin stands at the edge for too long. In the darkness of that frozen world, life waits in a shell no bigger than a hand. When the chicks finally break through, their small cries rise into the night, a delicate warmth defying the cold. As the sun returns, the mothers come back across the ice with food and relief. The colony breathes again. The story of the emperor penguin is one of devotion written in frost and wind, an act of love and endurance carried out at the far edge of what life can bear. The polar bear is not a creature of land, but of ocean. A marine mammal shaped by frozen tides and moving ice. It spends most of its life on the shifting platforms of the Arctic, following the slow rhythm of water turned solid. Beneath its white coat lies black skin that traps the faintest warmth, while thick layers of fat guard it from water cold enough to kill most life in minutes. It swims for days when the ice drifts apart, crossing silent, endless distances in search of seals and stable ground. On the ice, it waits without a sound beside breathing holes, guided only by scent, patience, and instinct carved through time. The sea is its cradle, its hunting ground, its path through a world that melts a little more each year. As the ice retreats, the bear must travel farther, chasing a disappearing home. Yet still it stands as a symbol of strength and solitude, a silent bridge between water, wind, and snow. Not far from these frozen realms, another survivor moves with the seasons themselves. The Arctic fox changes not only its habits, but its skin. Few beings wear the year so gracefully. In summer, its fur darkens to shades of brown and gray, blending with tundra stone and scrub. But as winter breathes across the land, a transformation begins. The coat thickens and turns white, glowing like frost beneath the moon. It becomes almost invisible against drifts and snowfields, a ghost with paws furred against the bite of ice. Beneath the surface, it hears the soft whisper of lemmings and dives with perfect aim. When food vanishes, it trails polar bears for scraps or buries meals beneath the snow for days of hunger. Through months of darkness and cutting wind, it remains swift, silent, and unbreakable, a creature built not only to endure change, but to become it. Yet life in the Arctic is not only large, loud, or warm. Some of its oldest survivors cannot be seen without a lens. Tiny rotifers and nematodes, smaller than a grain of sand, hold a secret older than the ice itself. When the world turns too cold or too dry, they do not fight. They vanish into stillness. Their bodies release water, their metabolism falls to almost nothing, and they enter cryptobiosis, a pause so deep that time itself passes around them. Years drift into decades, decades into centuries, and yet they wait without decay. With the return of warmth and moisture, they awaken as though only a night has passed. Some drawn from ancient Siberian ice have stirred after tens of thousands of years. Their existence is quiet but astonishing, proof that survival can come not from strength, but from the art of waiting, of becoming almost nothing until the world is kind again. Far south, beneath the Antarctic surface, another enigma swims through darkness. The Antarctic icefish, pale as mist and nearly invisible, drifts through water as clear as glass. It carries no hemoglobin in its blood, no red pigment, no color at all. Instead, oxygen moves through its plasma, guided by the cold, oxygen-rich sea. Its heart is larger than expected, its metabolism slow, and its skin so thin it draws breath directly from water. Natural antifreeze proteins flow through its veins, stopping crystals of ice from tearing it apart. In the beam of a submersible, it appears almost translucent, a ghost vertebrate shaped by silence and frost. It thrives in a place where few hearts could beat, a reminder that evolution does not follow rules, only possibility. And so, across poles and ice fields, life wears many faces: the giant, the graceful, the ancient, the unseen. From bears that walk the tides, to foxes that change with the snow, to invisible sleepers beneath frozen earth, to fish with blood like glass. Each exists on the edge of cold and time, not by conquering their world, but by becoming part of it. Beneath Antarctica's frozen seas, the water is so cold and still that time itself seems to hesitate. In this shadowed world, ancient sponges cling to the seabed, growing so slowly that centuries pass without noticeable change. Some of these silent beings are more than 10,000 years old, older than writing, older than cities, older than memory itself. They do not rush or move or chase. They simply endure. Their bodies filter the water grain by grain, absorbing traces of the ocean like archivists of the deep. Each layer of their being holds the history of epochs. Though they appear motionless, they are monuments of patience, living sculptures shaped not by speed, but by surrender to time's quiet flow. In their stillness lies a lesson. To outlast the world, one must sometimes become part of its silence. Not far from these ancient sentinels, another creature moves with a grace almost unnatural. The Weddell seal, silver gray and rounded like a drifting stone, lives among the ice floes that edge the Antarctic coast. When it dives, it does not hurry. It slips downward with a calm certainty of something born to the deep, descending 600 meters into darkness and remaining there for more than an hour without air. Its blood holds vast reserves of oxygen, and its muscles hoard even more. In the blackness beneath the ice, its heartbeat slows to a murmur as it glides through a cathedral of blue shadows and drifting bubbles. The holes it uses to breathe can freeze in minutes, so it keeps them open with its teeth, carving air from ice with every return. The Weddell seal does not fight the depths. It moves through them like a hymn, balancing strength with stillness in a realm that would end most lives in moments. Far to the north, in Arctic waters laced with cold and legend, an animal swims that once seemed too strange to be real. The narwhal, the so-called unicorn of the sea, carries a spiraled tusk that can reach 3 meters in length.
But this is no weapon.
It is a sensory organ alive with millions of nerve endings, able to read the sea like fingers across a page. Through this ivory spiral, the narwhal feels shifts in salinity, temperature, and pressure, signals no eye could ever catch. Males sometimes meet tusk to tusk in slow arcs, not in violence, but in ritual, crossing them like lances in a dream. To see a narwhal glide beneath the ice is to witness myth breathing, a creature shaped by cold and mystery, navigating fjords and shifting flows with quiet intelligence. Its tusk is a story written in ivory, spiraling toward the surface with meaning lost to legend and time. And in the deep, twilight waters of the North Atlantic, another ancient drifts through centuries as though they were seasons. The Greenland shark moves with a slowness that seems unreal, growing only a few centimeters each year. By studying the proteins in the lenses of their eyes, formed before birth and never replaced, scientists have found individuals older than 400 years. Some of these sharks were alive before telescopes, before continents were fully mapped, before the world understood the size of its own oceans. They glide through dark water where sunlight does not reach, feeding on fish, seals, and the remains of giants. Their pace is not weakness, it is wisdom carved by cold. In water where time itself drifts slowly, the Greenland shark turns survival into an art form. It reminds us that longevity is not merely living long, but moving gently through the centuries, unhurried by noise or light. Across the poles and their frozen seas, life takes its own shape, slow, silent, and astonishing. From sponges older than history, to seals that breathe in darkness, to narwhals that read the sea with ivory, to sharks that glide through centuries. Each one endures not by defying the cold, but by becoming part of it. Snow petrels are among the most ethereal beings on Earth, pure white, narrow-winged, and ghost-like against the polar sky. For most of their lives, they roam the sea winds, gliding over frigid waters in search of fish and drifting krill. But when the time comes to breed, they turn away from the ocean and fly toward the heart of the frozen continent. Hundreds of kilometers inland, where no other seabird dares to go, they seek cliffs of bare rock carved by ancient ice and scoured by endless wind. Snow cannot cling to these heights, and predators rarely follow. There, suspended above an endless world of blue shadows and white silence, they build their nests, sometimes more than 300 kilometers from the sea. Each female lays a single egg, guarded with fierce devotion against storms and cold that would kill in moments. To reach these remote nurseries, snow petrels brave gales and whiteouts, navigating not by sight, but by an instinct woven into their blood. When the chicks hatch, they open their eyes to a world stripped to its bones. No trees, no grass, only wind, rock, and snow. Yet in that emptiness, the cry of their parents becomes a promise. The snow petrel lives as a fragile bridge between sea and sky, its existence a testament to beauty shaped by endurance. Far below the surface, another realm hides in silence. Beneath Antarctic ice shelves, under roofs of frozen mass thicker than city skylines, entire ecosystems flourish in darkness. Sunlight has not touched these waters for thousands of years, yet life persists with quiet brilliance. When scientists bored through the ice and lowered cameras into the abyss, they found creatures clinging to stone, sponges, brittle stars, worms, and unfamiliar beings whose forms defy familiar science. Some may belong to evolutionary lineages unseen by human eyes until now. They feed not on light, but on drifting particles carried by ancient currents or nutrients released from the ice and sediment above them. These communities have survived in isolation since long before human memory. No storms disturb them. No seasons bend them. They exist in stillness, thriving in shadowed cathedrals of ice. Their existence proves that life does not ask for sunlight, only for a spark of energy and the will to endure. In the frozen dark beneath Antarctica's weight, the planet continues to breathe in secret. Deeper still, beneath kilometers of unbroken ice, lie the hidden lakes of Antarctica. Vast pools of liquid water, sealed away for millions of years, warmed only by the slow heat of the Earth's crust. They are untouched by wind, untouched by rain, untouched by time itself. When scientists finally drilled into these buried worlds, what they found rewrote our understanding of survival, living microbes stirring in the darkness. These organisms do not feed on light or photosynthesis. They draw energy from minerals, hydrogen, carbon compounds, the chemistry of stone and silence. Each subglacial lake is its own planet, evolving behind a curtain of ice since before humans existed. Studying them is like looking into the future or onto other worlds. What lives here could resemble what waits beneath the ice of Europa or Enceladus, where alien seas lie hidden from their suns. These lakes remind us that life does not merely adapt to extremes. It flourishes within them, writing its story in places untouched by dawn. Sea ice may look like a solid, lifeless sheet, but within it runs a secret anatomy. Threaded through the frozen slabs are brine channels, narrow veins of super salty water that twist like hidden tunnels through the ice. In these miniature sanctuaries, microscopic algae gather and bloom, tinting the inner walls with hues of amber, jade, and gold. These habitats are too small to see, yet they are the quiet architects of abundance. When sunlight pierces the ice, even faintly, the algae awaken and begin to photosynthesize. Their energy feeds the drifting zooplankton below, which in turn nourish fish, seals, birds, and whales. In spring, as the ice softens and melts, the brine channels rupture, spilling their vibrant contents into the sea in sudden bursts of life. Blooms explode across the polar oceans, triggered by the quiet labor of life that grew within frozen walls. It is a paradox made real, that inside ice, life not only survives, but prepares the feast for an entire world. These hidden veins whisper a lesson older than language. Even in the deepest cold and darkest stillness, life searches upward for light. Beneath the Arctic permafrost, time holds its breath. For tens of thousands of years, layers of frozen earth have locked away the remnants of vanished ecosystems, bacteria, spores, and ancient viruses preserved in suspended animation. Some of these microbes last stirred when mammoths walked the tundra and early humans followed their tracks across icy plains. In laboratories, scientists have revived a few of these organisms, watching them awaken as though no epoch has passed. Most pose no harm. They are simply survivors sculpted by patience and cold, yet their existence stirs unease and wonder in equal measure. The permafrost is more than a grave. It is an archive. DNA, cells, and ancient air remain pressed between strata like messages sealed in glass. As the ground thaws with a warming world, it does not just release methane and meltwater. It exhales history. Each layer unfreezing is a chapter returning to the present, a reminder that Earth does not erase. It remembers in ice and waits in silence until the world changes enough to listen. What lies beneath is not just danger or discovery, but proof that even time itself can freeze. Beneath nearly 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice rests a hidden world, Lake Vostok, a body of water the size of a small country that has not seen the sky for over 15 million years. Its surface lies buried beneath a ceiling of ancient ice so thick that sunlight has never touched the lake in all that time. Yet, its waters remain liquid, not by warmth from above, but by pressure and geothermal heat rising faintly from the earth below. When scientists first drilled down to its surface, they approached with reverence, as though knocking on the door of another planet. Any life here would have evolved in complete isolation, shielded from the atmosphere, continents, and oceans of the modern world. Traces of microbial life found in initial samples hint at an ecosystem shaped not by seasons or light, but by chemistry, darkness, and quiet persistence. Lake Vostok is a time capsule older than glaciers, older than human ancestors. It is a pocket of deep earth sealed in frozen stone, untouched by extinction or invention. In its silent depths lies the possibility of alternative evolution, a reminder that the planet still keeps secrets far below the surface, waiting under the ice like a breath held for ages. Far beneath the frozen lid of the Arctic Ocean, in a realm where sunlight has never touched, the seafloor glows faintly with heat. Here, hydrothermal vents rupture the Earth's crust, releasing plumes of mineral-rich water that billow into the darkness like underwater smoke. Around these vents, warmth blooms in the cold, creating an oasis of life in a world of night. Strange and ancient creatures gather in the glow, worms without eyes, clams without shells, and bacteria that feed on chemicals instead of light. These beings form ecosystems entirely independent of the sun, powered by the hidden chemistry of the deep earth. The discovery of these polar vent communities reshaped science's understanding of life itself. It proved that where energy flows, biology will rise, even in places where the sun has never shone. The vents hiss quietly in the dark, their mineral plumes curling upward beneath a ceiling of ice. Above them lies silence and darkness, but below, life burns softly with the heat of the planet's buried heart. Each Arctic summer, when the sun returns after months of darkness, another hidden world awakens. As the ice thins, sunlight pierces deeper into the water than ever before. And there, beneath the fractured ice, something extraordinary appears. Vast blooms of bright green phytoplankton, glowing like emerald clouds in the dim blue sea. Once, thick ice blocked almost all light and kept the waters beneath in darkness. But now, as the frozen shield becomes more transparent, sunlight reaches low enough to spark photosynthesis. These secret blooms feed an explosion of life, drawing krill, fish, seals, and whales to feast beneath the melting sky. Satellites can now see these green veils from orbit, shimmering like ghostly auroras below the surface. It is beautiful, but unsettling. The Arctic is opening up, more transparent, more alive, and more fragile than ever before. The ocean is waking in places once entombed in ice, and life is adapting faster than we can comprehend, finding new ways to flourish beneath a warming world. Far to the south, beneath the ancient ice of East Antarctica, another secret sleeps. Hidden under thousands of meters of ice lies a colossal mountain range, the Gambit-Sev Mountains, tall as the Alps and twice as mysterious. They stretch more than 1,000 kilometers across the continent, with peaks as high as Europe's great summits, yet not a single human eye has ever seen them. These mountains were discovered not by explorers, but by radar mapping that pierced the ice and revealed a ghostly landscape below. Scientists believe that long before Antarctica froze, tens of millions of years ago, these mountains may have held valleys, rivers, and perhaps even forests. Now, the ice above acts like both a tomb and a shield, preserving the peaks in pristine silence. The Gambit-Sev Range is a fossilized world, frozen mid-breath, a landscape suspended between past and eternity. It is a secret the Earth keeps from itself, an entire mountain range entombed beneath another range of time. To imagine it is to glimpse a lost world, one that endures unseen beneath the coldest desert on Earth. Long before it became a kingdom of ice and silence, Antarctica was green. About 19 million years ago, the continent sat farther north, cradled in a mild, humid climate. It was blanketed in thick rainforests filled with ferns, conifers, and flowering plants. Fossilized tree stumps and leaves still lie buried beneath the ice today, so well preserved that some still hold the microscopic structure of wood and traces of ancient pollen. Rivers once ribboned through its soil. The air was warm and wet. Dinosaurs roamed its valleys beneath long summer sunlight. Over millions of years, Antarctica drifted southward. Slowly, warmth surrendered to frost. Forests fell silent. Ice rose and sealed the land in white. But the ghosts of those summers remain. Every fossilized root and leaf is a whisper of rain and warmth in a place where now only the cold remembers. Deep beneath the ice and ancient rock, the bones of polar dinosaurs still rest. In Greenland, scientists have unearthed fossils of giant plant eaters, proof that the island once held lush forests and winding rivers. In Antarctica, remains of small dinosaurs and early birds reveal that the South Pole was once a temperate refuge, not a frozen wilderness. These discoveries remind us that the poles were not always locked in frost. Under long summer days and gentle winters, life thrived where now only ice breathes. As continents drifted and climate shifted, entire ecosystems vanished beneath stone and permafrost. Every bone is a time capsule, a reminder that the Earth does not keep one face forever. Landscapes are written in eras, not moments. Ice did not sculpt the world alone. Time did. Though Antarctica's surface appears frozen and still, the land beneath is alive with motion. Directly under the South Pole lies a vast network of subglacial lakes and rivers, flowing silently beneath the crushing weight of the ice. Heat from the Earth's core and friction from the moving glacier keep this hidden water from freezing. Radar and satellite mapping have revealed hundreds of underground waterways connecting enormous basins across the continent. Some rivers carry meltwater toward the ocean. Others may circulate minerals and nutrients that sustain microbial life sealed away in darkness. These discoveries transformed how we see ice sheets. They are not static shields of frozen silence. They are dynamic, breathing systems. Beneath Antarctica's stillness, rivers move like veins through a sleeping giant. Even here, in the coldest place on Earth, the planet does not rest. Motion and mystery continue in the dark, carrying the silent pulse of an ancient world. Hidden beneath Greenland's colossal ice sheet lies a canyon so vast it rivals the imagination. More than 700 kilometers long and deeper than the Grand Canyon, this buried chasm winds silently through the bedrock, carved by ancient rivers millions of years before the ice entombed it. Discovered through radar mapping, The canyon still channels meltwater beneath the glacier today, flowing like a secret river in total darkness. Its existence revealed that Greenland is not just a slab of ice. It's a landscape of concealed ridges, valleys, and hidden lakes, sculpted long before the modern world. This submerged gorge is more than a geological marvel. It is a memory of warmth and water sealed beneath frozen ages. Even under kilometers of ice, the echo of ancient rivers continues to run strong. Across Antarctica's endless white plains, black stones lie scattered like stars on snow, meteorites from deep space. The continent's dry, frozen surface preserves them in near-perfect condition. Their dark surfaces stand out against the pale ice, making them easier to spot here than anywhere else on Earth. As glaciers move, they naturally herd these space rocks into concentrated zones called meteorite stranding surfaces, where scientists gather them like treasures. Some of these rocks have traveled the galaxy for billions of years before landing on this frozen world. Each meteorite carries clues from the birth of the solar system, dust from ancient stars, the raw material of planets. Antarctica is not just a land of ice. It is a cosmic archive, silently curating the universe's oldest relics. From the frozen deserts of the Arctic and Antarctica, powerful winds lift microscopic dust into the sky. Though born from barren rock, this dust is rich in iron, a nutrient essential for marine life. As the particles drift across the atmosphere and settle over distant oceans, they act as a natural fertilizer. Their arrival sparks blooms of phytoplankton, tiny drifting algae that form the foundation of the oceanic food chain, feeding krill, fish, whales, and more. From ice to sea, from stone to life, this invisible exchange binds the planet together. It is a quiet circulation of nourishment, frozen continents feeding living oceans through dust carried on the breath of the sky. Even in stillness, the poles move the world. In December 1911, after months of hunger, exhaustion, and blinding cold, a small group of men finally stood at the end of the Earth. Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen and his team reached the South Pole on December 14th, becoming the first humans in history to set foot there. They planted their flag in a white wilderness no human eyes had seen, a place defined by silence, wind, and eternity. Only weeks later, the British expedition led by Robert Falcon Scott arrived, too late to claim victory. Scott's team turned back heartbroken, and on the return journey, they succumbed one by one to frostbite, starvation, and the endless cold, dying just 11 miles from safety. Their journals speak of a world of strange light, shifting snow, and a silence that felt like another universe. Today, their tents and tools remain preserved in ice, time capsules of courage, ambition, and the heavy cost of exploration. The South Pole is both a monument to achievement and a warning. The Earth's most remote places do not surrender easily. The race to the South Pole was one of history's most dramatic struggles. Two leaders, Amundsen of Norway and Scott of Britain, set out within months of each other, driven by national pride and personal obsession. Amundsen traveled with dogs and discipline, using Inuit techniques and precise planning. Scott relied on man-hauling and experimental motor sledges that failed in the punishing cold. Amundsen's team reached the pole first, leaving behind a tent and a letter as proof. When Scott arrived weeks later, defeat was carved into his diary beneath a leaden Antarctic sky. On their way home, Scott and his men fell to the ice they tried to conquer. Their loss is as remembered as Amundsen's victory, not just as rivalry, but as a stark reminder of human limits before the polar night. Two paths, one dream, the same frozen horizon, the same unforgiving judge. For millennia, Inuit peoples have thrived in the Arctic's vast white silence, not through conquest, but through understanding. They read the ice like a map, its colors, cracks, and sounds revealing where it is safe to travel. They can tell the strength of a frozen sea simply by the tone of its wind. Their lives follow the migrations of whales and seals, the slow turning of the seasons, and the memory of ancestors carried through stories and song. They build shelters from snow, tools from bone and stone, and communities shaped by resilience. What others see as empty, they know as alive. The Inuit teach a truth many explorers learn too late. Survival in the polar world is not force, but harmony with ice, wind, and time. 1,000 years ago, long before modern navigation, Viking explorers sailed through the stormy North Atlantic in wooden ships, guided only by sun, stars, and memory. Around the year 1000, Leif Erikson reached Greenland and then sailed onward to a new land called Vinland, likely part of today's North America. Their longships cut through freezing seas with nothing but courage at the helm. Archaeological remains at Lance Aux Meadows in Newfoundland, ironwork, timber, and hearths prove they were there. Their journeys show that the polar seas have never been barriers, but bridges between worlds. Even at the edge of the known Earth, humans have always followed the call of the horizon, listening to the whisper of wind over ice and sea. In the era of wooden ships, wool coats, and uncertain maps, the polar regions were not destinations, they were punishments wrapped in ice. Early explorers ventured into these white wildernesses guided only by stars that disappeared into months of polar night. They sailed through seas locked in ice, their ships creaking like dying beasts beneath crushing pressure. They carried hope, hardtack, and salt-preserved meat, but no understanding of nutrition. Without fresh fruits or vegetables, scurvy crept into their bodies. Muscles wasted away, teeth loosened, gums blackened and bled. Frostbite gnawed at fingers and toes, turning flesh to stone before snapping it away. When sled dogs perished or supplies froze solid, hunger arrived like a second winter. And still they pushed forward. Their journals tell of a strange balance, pain and magnificence woven together. Auroras shimmered across frozen skies like veils of living light. Silence stretched so wide it felt like a threat. The poles asked for everything a human could give, and in return, offered only glimpses of eternity carved in ice and loneliness. One expedition would carve its name into legend. In 1914, Sir Ernest Shackleton set sail aboard the Endurance, determined to cross Antarctica from coast to coast. But the White Continent had other plans. The ship became locked in pack ice, trapped, squeezed, and finally crushed by a frozen ocean. For months, the men drifted on the ice, listening to the groans of splintering timber as the sea swallowed their vessel whole. Stranded hundreds of miles from land, Shackleton refused despair. His crew camped on drifting ice sheets, surviving on seals and penguins as the continent turned its back to them. Eventually, they launched lifeboats across waves like mountains and reached a barren island. But survival demanded more. With only 5 men, Shackleton boarded a small open boat and sailed across one of the most dangerous seas on the planet to find rescue. Against all logic and probability, he returned. Every man lived. The Endurance was more than a ship. It became a testament to willpower, leadership, and hope, the rare kind that survives an Antarctic winter. Today, the ghosts of those explorers still linger, their world preserved by the cold. Along Antarctica's remote coastlines stand the weather-beaten huts of the heroic age, frozen monuments to human grit. Shackleton's base at Cape Roy still shelters boots, crates, food tins, and handwritten notes, untouched for over a century. At Scott's hut on Ross Island, the air still carries the faint scent of smoke and seal oil. Nothing rots here. Nothing fades. The cold is a curator, the wind a guardian. Bacteria cannot grow, and even wool and leather remain supple, as if the men might return at any moment. Today, scientists and conservators care for these fragile time capsules with reverence. They understand, these huts are not ruins, they are moments, paused mid-breath. To step inside is to hear echoes of laughter, fear, ambition, and exhaustion, carried on winds that still howl across the ice. In this place, history doesn't decay. It endures, like the men who faced the ends of the earth and kept walking. For decades, Antarctic expeditions were brief intrusions, seasonal ventures that came and went like migrating birds. No one stayed through the long polar night. No one tried. That changed in 1957. During the International Geophysical Year, IGY, of 1957 to 58, scientists from around the world united with a bold idea: study the Earth not as divided nations, but as a single, shared system. Antarctica became their greatest challenge and greatest opportunity. 12 nations built the first permanent, year-round research stations on the continent. They installed instruments that listened to the deep rumble of seismic waves, traced the shimmer of cosmic rays, and mapped the invisible lines of Earth's magnetic field. What began as a scientific initiative quietly marked something bigger: the birth of continuous human presence at the bottom of the world. From those early huts and observation towers grew a global network of climate research, astrophysics, weather monitoring, glaciology, and biology. The spirit of cooperation born in that frozen year changed how humanity saw the continent, not as territory to conquer, but as a laboratory, a sanctuary, and a responsibility. Under skies lit by auroras and silence older than history, Antarctica became a shared frontier, belonging to knowledge rather than to flags. Every other continent carries the memory of its ancestors: stone tools buried beneath soil, stories passed in firelight, footsteps worn into earth by time. Antarctica has none. No tribe ever called it home. No myths were born in its ice. No children were raised beneath its sunless winters. The cold was too brutal, the distances too vast, and the land too barren to cradle a human culture. When humans finally stepped onto its shores, they came not as settlers but as visitors, explorers, sailors, and scientists. Today, a few thousand people live there temporarily in research stations, studying penguins, climate, stars, and the secrets buried in ancient ice. And when they leave, the silence closes behind them like a door. Antarctica is a continent without ownership, ancestry, or conquest, a blank page at the bottom of the globe. Its emptiness is not a void, but a kind of peace, a reminder that there are still places on Earth that belong only to the Earth itself, spoken in the quiet language of snow and wind. To most people, snow is just snow. Ice is just ice. But for the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, Inuit, Sami, Yupik, Kalaalleq, snow and ice are living worlds with personalities, moods, and warnings. Their languages hold dozens of words to describe what others might call a single thing. There are words for snow that drifts like breath, snow that hardens to a crust, snow so soft it swallows footsteps, ice that sings beneath sled runners, new ice, young and fragile, thin ice that lies like a trap beneath the moonlight. Each word is knowledge, carried forward through generations, an instruction manual written in sound. These terms tell travelers when seals will surface, when storms are coming, and when the land itself is unsafe. To speak these words is not just to describe weather. It is to read the Arctic like a book, alive, changeable, and wise. It is a conversation between people, climate, and time itself. In 1959, at the height of the Cold War, 12 nations did something almost unthinkable. Instead of competing for territory at the bottom of the world, they signed the Antarctic Treaty, an agreement that declared the entire continent a realm of peace and science. No military bases, no nuclear testing, no territorial expansion, no mining for riches buried beneath the ice. It was not a land to be owned, but a world to be understood. What began with 12 signatures has grown to more than 50 nations, all bound by a shared promise. Antarctica shall remain the planet's most protected wilderness, a sanctuary for research and cooperation. The treaty preserves ecosystems, blocks resource exploitation, and guards against conflict. It stands as proof that even in an age of rivalry, humanity can choose knowledge over conquest. The Antarctic Treaty transformed the continent from a battleground of ambitions into a living symbol of unity, not a prize to win, but a promise to keep. Across the vast white silence, scattered like sparks on a frozen canvas, lie the research stations of Antarctica. Some perch along the wind-carved coastlines. Others cling to mountains of ice, or rest atop the polar plateau. Some operate only in summer. Others endure the endless winter night. Yet all share the same mission: to study the planet from its quietest frontier. Scientists measure the pulse of glaciers, chase storms across the atmosphere, and observe cosmic radiation from skies clearer than anywhere else on Earth. Life in these stations is a paradox, isolated yet deeply communal. Crews share meals, celebrate small victories, and weather storms that rattle the walls like ancient drums. From space, their lights appear like distant constellations scattered across a kingdom of snow. Each station is a small beacon of human curiosity, a sign that even at the edge of the world, we keep seeking answers. Deep beneath the frozen crust of the South Pole lies something extraordinary: the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, an invisible ear pressed against the cosmos. Buried in the ancient ice are thousands of sensors arranged like a submerged cathedral of light. They wait in stillness for traces of the universe's most elusive travelers, neutrinos, particles so small and ghost-like that trillions pass through your body each second without leaving a mark. But once in a great while, one collides with an atom in the ice, and a faint flash of blue light awakens in the dark. Each flash is a message from far beyond Earth, from supernovae, black holes, and distant galaxies where light itself was born. Antarctica's ice, clear as glass and older than civilization, makes the perfect canvas for detecting these whispers. Here, in the heart of the cold, the planet listens to the stars, and high on the Antarctic plateau, where the air is razor dry and the sky never truly sets, great radio telescopes aim at the oldest light in existence, the cosmic microwave background. This faint afterglow is the universe's first memory, the dying echo of the Big Bang. Antarctica's atmosphere, free of moisture and noise, offers a clarity that almost no other place on Earth can match. Through this stillness, scientists search for patterns in ancient radiation, patterns that reveal how matter formed, how galaxies took shape, and how the universe began its endless expansion. These telescopes keep vigil through the long polar night, scanning a sky draped in auroras and silence. Each signal they capture is not just data, it is time itself, traveling nearly 14 billion years to reach us. From the coldest place on Earth, humanity gazes into the dawn of everything. The colossal ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland are not just frozen landscapes, they are libraries of time. Each snowfall settles like a page upon the last, pressing slowly into ice and trapping within it the air, dust, and temperature of its era. Layer by silent layer, the past is preserved. Scientists drill deep into these frozen chronicles, extracting long cylinders of ice, archives of atmosphere and climate reaching back hundreds of thousands of years. Within them lie the rise and fall of greenhouse gases, the scars of volcanic eruptions, and the steady rhythm of past ice ages. Today, we watch these same ice sheets change in real time, melting, thinning, and accelerating toward the sea. What they recorded in stillness, they now speak through motion. The ice holds both memory and warning, showing us not only where we have been, but where even a small degree of warmth may lead us next. In every frozen layer, the future waits to be heard. There is a place in Antarctica where snow does not fall, rivers do not flow, and life clings only in shadows. The McMurdo Dry Valleys, a land of bare rock, desert winds, and soil as sterile as dust, are the closest thing to Mars found on Earth. The air holds almost no moisture. The ground is carved by wind instead of water. The landscape glows with shades of rust, ochre, and muted red. Because of this, space agencies bring their rovers, drills, and sensors here to train for other worlds. Even life, where it exists, hides in cracks of stone and thin brines frozen beneath the surface. In this silence, one can almost imagine the crunch of an astronaut's boot across alien ground. The dry valleys are a bridge between planets, a reminder that the extraterrestrial sometimes lives within our own horizon. In the early 1980s, scientists studying the Antarctic sky made a discovery that stunned the world. Each spring, high above the continent, the ozone layer, our shield against ultraviolet radiation, collapsed into a gaping hole. The cause was traced to chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, chemicals once used in refrigeration and aerosols. In the extreme cold of the Antarctic stratosphere, these compounds became even more destructive, tearing ozone molecules apart with ruthless efficiency. The alarm rang quickly, and for once, the world listened. In 1987, nations united to sign the Montreal Protocol, phasing out the damaging chemicals. Decades later, the ozone hole has begun to heal. The Antarctic sky became a paradox, first a warning, then a promise. It showed that what humanity breaks, humanity can also repair if it chooses to act together. And now, the poles fade gently into stillness. The wind quiets. The stars steady themselves in the dark. The frozen seas rest beneath their endless sky. You have wandered through auroras and ancient ice, through the breath of glaciers and the hush of drifting snow, through forgotten rivers, buried mountains, and silent lights from distant galaxies. Here, in the farthest reaches of the Earth, time loosens its hold. Each sound feels older. Each shadow seems patient. The land itself breathes in sleep. The ice remembers. The oceans listen. The sky keeps its secrets. And as the last flicker of polar light drifts from your thoughts, only calm remains, deep, quiet, and unbroken. If this journey with Dreamy Lab brought you peace, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a gentle thought below. It helps other wandering minds find their way here too. For now, just breathe. Let your mind soften. Let the cold edges of the world cradle you in rest.
Vast,
Ancient
silent.
and beautifully still. Good night.